Hi everyone, and welcome. This week I'm going to replace an old picket fence. Let me know if you prefer having a voice, or if you'd rather I just kept quiet and occasionally added some text. I'll start by removing the old one. The pickets are all pretty dead, but I'll hang on to the rails. I've got a future project at my place that they'll come in handy for. The old posts don't have much life left, but at least they're easy to get out in one piece. I like to use cypress posts, as it's naturally resistant to rot and insect damage, which make it ideal for outdoor applications. This means your structures will last longer with minimal maintenance. It's also a sustainable timber, if correctly sourced. It's a bit more expensive than treated pine, but its durability and low maintenance make it a reasonable cost-effective option. I'll put all the materials and their dimensions in the video description for you. I'm going to roughly cut them to size and give them a bit of a clean up with the sander. Our end posts and gate posts are going to be exposed on this fence. They are 100 by 100 millimeters. For the line posts, I'm using 125 by 75. They'll be lower than the end posts and set behind the pickets, so won't be visible from the street. I like to use a timber preserver on the parts of the posts that'll be in the soil. It protects them from water and makes them last a bit longer. I'm setting these 600 millimeters deep. A good rule of thumb is to set them at least a third of the post height deep, but I like to put them in a bit more than that. These will be 1200 high, so I've put them in half the post's height. I'm setting up some strings to keep them in line. Once all the holes are dug, it's time to get some concrete ready. For the concrete mix, I'm using 3 parts aggregate, 2 parts sand, and 1 part cement. I'll put all the proportions in the video description. When I set posts, I like to put some aggregate at the bottom of the hole and rest the post directly on it, and then fill around it with concrete. This allows any water to pass through so that it doesn't get stuck and rot the bottom. Get your post into place, using the string lines and a level. I work alone, so just clamp an old bit of timber to the bottom to hold it in place while I pour in the concrete. If you have an extra person, you can just get them to hold it steady instead. Our line posts are going to be set 58 millimeters further back. I'm just measuring back from the line I set for the end posts, because there are too many plants in the way to set up a new string. If you have space to get a new one in, it will make setting them a bit easier. Once the posts are in and the concrete has set, you would ideally add the plinth board. The one I'm using is in the process of being painted, so to keep the job moving, I'm going to do this step later and start marking out the post for the rails. Marking out the rails is easier if the plinth's already in. You can just measure up from it, or make a stencil so that all the checks will be at the same height. I'm doing it the hard way with a straight edge and a level. The checks will be in the front of the line posts, but in the back of the end and gate posts. Set the depth of the saw to the thickness of the rails. Make a few slices and then chisel it out. Do the checks in all the posts. Around the gate, you'll only be cutting halfway through the posts. It just makes for a neater finish. Trim up your rails. Any joins should meet on a post. When that's done, you can trim your posts to the finished height. Now, you can start making up your gate. I'm making mine out of the same timber that I used for the rails. screw it all together, making sure that it's nice and square. My end and gate posts are going to sit 150mm above the pickets and will have pointed tops. To do this, I'm setting the saw on a 45-degree angle and cutting around the posts. Attach your rails. Now that my plinth is ready, I can screw it on. I've attached it to the ends using a metal bracket, but you can just use a piece of timber if you prefer. The plinth is lower on this side because of the slope. I'm going to trim off the bottom of it so that it doesn't sit in the dirt. The pickets and rails have all been painted before I attach them. You don't have to do it this way, but it makes painting the sides of the pickets a lot less tedious. I recommend painting the rails first though. It's much easier to do without the pickets on. I've made up a spacer to get a uniform gap between them, and I'm countersinking the screws so that they can be filled in later. Attach the gate hinges. Attach a picket to each side of the gate. I want these to be the same height as the rest of the fence. I'm clamping a guide to the bottom so that it's easier to get them all the same height. Then, space your pickets out evenly. Depending on the size of your gate, the gaps might be ever so slightly smaller or bigger than the ones on the fence. If it's only a few millimeters difference, you won't be able to notice it. Once you're happy with the spacing, start screwing them on. Fill in your screw holes with some exterior filler, and then you can slot it into place. Fill in the rest of your screw holes. Once it is set, give it a quick sand. If you painted the pickets first like I did, they will need a bit of touching up and a final coat. Thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you liked having the voice or not. I'm a bit undecided about it, so happy to do future videos with or without the voiceover.